this is, as a group, your first adventure since you've all split up since the pandemic. So how does it feel to like kind of be back at it making music again?
Whew. I mean, I'll let John speak for himself, but it feels great to me. I hope John has enjoyed making music with me since we've come back. But yeah, I mean, it's been super fun. We weren't sure like what it would look like coming back from the pandemic. But once we got vaccinated, we were like, let's get in the studio. We always have, we have an enormous backlog of songs that we already have demoed that we could, put into albums or EPs at any given time. And so we said, let's get in the studio. John set up this whole home studio at his place in the basement, and it was honestly like the most fun I think that we've had recording since we started playing together. So it's been a success so far, and we've had one show since coming back, which was really awesome.
Yeah.
Just seeing everyone in the scene again and just getting the community back together.
The recording setup was a huge step up, especially from what we'd had before. The last summer we ruined by recording during it was 2019. We were hoping we could have ruined 2020 as well, but the world beat us to it. We were scooped. And so the last time we recorded all of the rhythm tracks in a single weekend at a proper studio, Pink Noise in Somerville, which is probably pretty close to where you are, David. Cool. And then we did that concentrated work in 2 12-hour days, and then spent the whole summer tracking in Tim's bedroom in this apartment we lived in together. It was 6 people in a flat, like one level of a triple decker. So we had to, we required a lot of patience from our roommates, and we spent countless days doing all of the vocals, electric guitar, auxiliary stuff, like all manner of stuff we hadn't done with just those 3 tracks in the studio before. And we had to do that in a quiet space, so we couldn't have any AC. We couldn't have, and we had multiple people in this tiny little box.
Oh my gosh, that's true, yeah.
So it was like 95 degrees in July in Tim's room. For that,
we have all the windows closed, door closed.
Because we were on a main road, like you could hear trucks driving by otherwise. So this time we had central AC and like soundproofing. It was so much better to be doing.
It was a glow up, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
And the song that you put out is called Autumn, which seems very timely, even though it's kind of getting a little bit towards the tail end of autumn. And it's from your upcoming EP, which you were so gracious, Tim, to share some private links with me. So
I was so happy.
I got an exclusive first listen, you could say. And I was just wondering, with this song and with the EP itself, is there some kind of like theme you're going for with the sound and maybe with the content on the piece as well? Because I listened to it a couple times, and even just some of the lyrics, it felt like you were kind of trying to tell a story in a sense. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I can speak to the like content side of it, and then maybe me and John can both kind of talk about the music of it. And so for the content of it, I mean, it's 5 songs all about the same thing, which is, a relationship that I was in for, going on 2 years. And so Autumn, I wrote like at the very beginning of that relationship when, it was autumn. And, so I was very much, inspired by all the tree imagery and stuff. I also I don't know, I find trees to be really like metaphorically rich. There's a lot of different directions you can go with that. So yeah, and then, the song that I wrote after that is called Loop Vines, and that's kind of, as I actually wrote that for my girlfriend at the time, like for her for Valentine's Day. And then it was actually just a rough version of it. And then, you know, me, John, and Ben really fleshed it out this past summer in a way that I was really, really pleased with. And so then the song after that, it's called Pantomime. And that's kind of when I was realizing that the relationship wasn't long for this world, I suppose, and was feeling, you know, fucked up about it. And then, you know, the final song, For to End / Here's to Then, is just kind of, you know, like looking back on it and just like the acceptance of how it all went down. And then there was one song that I left out that was kind of like an intro piece that we had a lot of fun experimenting with in the studio. That was a lot of fun putting together musically, but was just kind of like a, you know, third person perspective almost, just looking at the whole situation as a whole. So yeah, I mean, definitely
chronologically, Tim.
Yeah. So
where did that fit? Was that the last one you wrote?
Yeah, I think I wrote it around the same time as For to End. Here's Then.
That's interesting. So, yeah. It's kind of like taking yourself out of the situation, like you said, and getting that third person perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's like the first verse is like looking at where I was like right before this relationship started, like literally like the night that relationship started. And then there's this whole kind of like instrumental middle section. And then you come out the other side with the second verse and final verse. And that's just kind of you know, looking back at, all right, well, you know, relationship's done now. And, you know, here we go. And now I'm going to tell you the whole story of it in these next 4 songs.
Right, exactly.
And we had some like, we included like some themes, like some of the, we had like a Rhodes piano doing the guitar riffs that appear on the next 4 songs. So I'm glad that you noticed it was, you know, telling a story, because I'm into the self-referential kind of aspect of it, you know.
And then John, you had something you were going to mention. I guess Tim said you were going to mention about kind of the more nuances, like of the musical content, you could say.
Oh, I suppose. I mean, I was just making sure. I was going to make sure that Tim mentioned that the allusions on the roads.
Okay.
I think those are really well placed right after the first verse and seasons. But it's fortunate that you can fit a little piece of 4, I think, pretty disparate tunes into that first song, because especially Loop Vines and Pantomime represent pretty different styles from the other 3 songs on the EP. And yeah, I mean, I think Tim probably should say more about where he drew inspiration for each one musically.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that, you know, it's very influenced by, you know, Hippocampus, by, I don't know if you've listened to the Backseat Lovers at all.
The list of groups that you referenced in your email, I knew at least 2, and the rest I just had no clue who they were.
Well, hopefully someone listening will, you know, be like, oh yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, Dr. Dog is a big, I think, reference point for us just across all of our music, especially with like vocal harmonies. But yeah, and I mean, and also really John is an influence of mine in songwriting. He really like got me into songwriting. And so I think like a lot of the way that the lead guitar likes to play around with, you know, what we sometimes call little sister chords, you know, just the top 3 strings, and really getting that like kind of like chimey element in there. Yeah, so definitely all of those. And then I think like something that was a little bit different for us this time is that over the pandemic, I got this, I really like Vampire Weekend, as you might have guessed from my sweater here.
Oh, yeah.
And so Ezra Koenig, the lead singer from that, always posts these little videos on Instagram of him playing this like mini keyboard.
Oh, okay.
And so I got myself that mini keyboard for my birthday. And so I got into playing a little bit more piano. And so, you know, on Seasons and on Pantomime, definitely much more piano based than we've ever been in the past.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool.
I think it's possible to overstate the extent to which the music one listens to actually has an effect on the music you write. Like in broad strokes, it can. Like I think if you listen to Autumn or For to End, you can hear a lot of the sort of rhythmic guitar, rhythmic rhythm guitar. Sounds kind of redundant, but in that, like, the strokes have kind of discrete hits as opposed to having a wall of strums. Like that I can definitely hear the influence of the music Tim listens to in there, but most of I think for me and for Tim, most of, and I assume to some extent for other songwriters, the way you write has a lot more to do with just what you're proficient at playing in the first place. Like I can't play most of the music I listen to and enjoy because I'm just not that good, and I like don't know how to fingerpick like The Tallest Man on Earth or something. And then also what equipment you have available to you and what your habits playing on are. So, you know, like there's no like showcase piano playing really on the album. There's like very tasteful, good piano music laced throughout the tracks, but like Tim is pretty good at piano, but none of us are great at piano. But we have much better skills at drums, especially, and bass and guitar. So, and just like the way we're used to sitting down and playing, and the habits, just like you learn from your teachers early on, and the habits you take up from learning certain songs early on, I think have a lot to do with the way you approach writing.
And kind of on that topic too, you're talking about your group's dynamic. For the people that don't know what we talked about before we started recording, if you want to mention just kind of how the 3/4 of you work, like there's 2 other members that aren't with us right now, but everyone, Tim, you kind of mentioned, everyone kind of takes on different hats in this group. You know, everyone kind of does different things.
Yeah. So I primarily play, you know, as you alluded to, like it depends what our situation is. So I think in the studio, I play most of the guitars, and John plays all of the bass, and Ben plays all the drums. And then we all sing harmonies or lead, and who sings lead just is determined by who wrote the song. So really the majority of our catalog is John singing, because John's a really prolific songwriter who's written like 100 songs or something in his life.
That's
so
awesome.
82, I think.
82.
We have
yeah,
a specific number now.
Well, we have if you could see the Google Doc. You know?
I bet.
Yeah, and so that's like kind of how we go about things in the studio. We all sing, so that's awesome that we can always, you know, throw the harmonies in there. And then we have a 4th member named Cleo, and she plays bass for us live, at which point John plays guitar. And she's an awesome singer as well, and she plays piano, and she could play guitar for us too if we asked her to.
Right.
But yeah.
The bench sounds very stocked is what I'm hearing. Like, you know, like that expression, you're stacking the bench, your team. That's what it sounds. It sounds like you all kind of like are good players, you know? No pun intended, actually.
Ben is definitely the most impressively like trained musician of the 4 of us. He's a Berklee quality drummer.
Okay. Do all of you come from a musical background, or was it something that more came like later in life, would you say?
I can speak for me and Ben. Ben and I actually have known each other since freshman year of high school. So we're both from Rhode Island and went to high school together. We were in a band for all of high school and through the first 2 years of college, 3-ish years of college. It's just sort of petered out, but he has a somewhat musical family, but he just has been taking drum lessons basically for his whole life. And he was in jazz band and jazz ensemble all throughout high school. I actually didn't really play outside of that band. I was asked to join because I like played bass and they needed someone who could play bass in the band, but I just took lessons. I wasn't super well trained or anything. So it was really in that band where I was definitely the worst player that I learned to do everything I can do now, which is still pretty modest.
As an aside, that's the best position to be in a band, is being the worst player.
Yeah.
Yeah. I learned so much from being, you know, with being in that band with with those three other guys. So Ben, is really well trained and has been taking lessons for a long time. And did, our band was called Roslyn. He did Roslyn as just one of a large mosaic of his musical efforts throughout those years. But that was really my main thing until college, when I met Tim. As the three of us went to BU, but Tim and I were suite mates, and Tim played guitar in high school at School of Rock in Philadelphia, where he met Cleo. So I'll pass the ball off there, I guess.
Yeah. So School of Rock is a performance-based music education program. It's like an after-school thing. And it's like you take a lesson once a week, but you also there are like these themed shows every season. And so it'll be like, this season we're doing like the music of Led Zeppelin. And then they have like 23 songs, and all of the students at School of Rock get like cast onto it. And, you're playing guitar one, and, you're going to sing.
Okay.
And so you like rehearse together, and then you put on like 2 shows at the end of the season to like show all your family and friends what's going on. And there's like, there are other levels to it too. Like there's like a house band that just kind of like plays out all the time to kind of promote the school. And so Cleo and I were friends through that. And I actually like quit guitar twice before I found School of Rock in high school. So I think that the performance element was really what like made it all click for me. And so,
right.
So I mean, I guess a similar way in that as you, John.
I'm curious now too, when this kind of focal or like defining point came for Plumes, like came for the group, because I was looking back at some of your stuff, and I think the earliest I could find was like 2017. So is that when you started putting projects out, putting out singles, like the ball kind of got rolling? Like, how did that all kind of come together?
This is a good story that I love to tell.
Oh, good.
even though it's kind of John's story. So feel free to, jump in, John, and tell me to shut up. But
sure.
So, I mean, John and I had been friends for, a couple of years in college, and and then, it got to the point where he was like, oh, let me show you like some of the songs I've written. And, he had demoed a couple of the songs and stuff. And so we had kind of like talked about, he was like, oh, my friend Ben, like, Ben, I played in a band with him in college. Like, we should get together and hang out and like play. And so we, kind of talked about doing that, like maybe like got together and jammed once or twice, but things didn't really coalesce until John and I were living together at a time in college when he had like met like a friend of mine, and they were kind of like, on again, off again, / like not quite a relationship. It was just, like kind of missed connections. And, John had, cause as I mentioned, he writes a million songs. He had written a couple of songs about him, just in our like bedroom. And then I'd gone to study abroad, air quotes, in Los Angeles. And, the subject of the songs had been gone too, and John's just trying to like get over it, and I was, I remember we would talk on the phone a lot, and we were like, hey, let's like revisit this idea of being in this band. Like, what if you just throw together these like 4 songs that you wrote about Savannah, and call it like Biome or something, and then put it out. And then when I get back, we can, play some shows. And these were all like, this became our first EP, the Negligent Biome EP. And so these were all just songs that were written and recorded by John in our BU housing through like GarageBand.
Place to be.
Yeah. So, and then basically like Savannah heard those songs.
Oh no.
I heard those songs, and then reached out to him and were like, hey, these are really beautiful, like, would you want to like hang out like sometime, And so yeah. And I mean, long story short, they got married a week ago. So
Aww.
Wow. So that was kind of how it all, came together. And then, that all kind of happened that summer of them like getting together and falling in love and everything. And so John then wrote kind of our second EP, which was Man of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was...
I wonder where that title came from. Just kidding.
So he, kind of took the same kind of like chords and kind of like vibe of the first EP, and then kind of just like told the story again, like now. So kind of just like the other end of that coin. And so I think like the first like real show that we played together as You, Me, and Ben was that EP release show at our friend's apartment in Alston. And then from there, we've been playing ever since.
Yeah, we played the 2 EPs together.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. That was not technically our first ever show. It was our first proper show.
Okay.
But when Tim was abroad, it was just Ben and I, and our friend had asked us to play this show, this like block party for South Campus at BU, and I like borrowed my friend's like 40-watt amp for it. Like I was ready to play this huge outdoor thing, and it rained that day.
Oh,
no. We ended up in this little function room in Warren Towers. It was just me and Ben playing as a duo, playing like, a smattering of our early songs, but we didn't have a name at the time. So we were titled Uncle Jerry and the Meat Sweats.
Okay.
For that first gig, just because our friend has an uncle named Jerry who gets the meat sweats, and I heard that and just put it in like a Hootie and the Blowfish
exactly what I thought it was from.
Yeah. So we played a show like that, and then we played one more as a duo at this like house show in Narragansett. Yeah, but like the first real like Plumes show was that release show, which was a lot of fun.
I gotcha. And how do you feel about this project that you're about to release in terms of your sound? Like, do you kind of see it, I don't want to say like going away from where you first started. I always like to use the word progress. Like, do you think this EP shows like a progression of your sound and things that maybe you've done differently that you didn't do in the past?
So John and I have talked about this a lot. I feel like we definitely think it's a step up in terms of like production quality. Like we're super, super pleased with how it came out. Like the mix of it all. Our previous release, T, our second album, like we had mixed entirely ourselves. And we had gotten like some advice from friends and stuff. But we had mixed that entirely ourselves, and that was like, the first time we really tried to do that. And super proud of how it came out, but there were, some limitations, some things we wanted to improve upon. And so we brought in our friend Dan Thorne from Pink Noise Studios in Somerville, where we had recorded some of the rhythm tracks for our last project. And he just did an incredible job of mixing these songs that we have coming out on the EP. And yeah, so we're really excited to like, to progress in that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Songwriting wise, I'm really interested to hear, cause like, I wrote these songs, and John has written, we've put out songs that I've written before. We've put out songs that Ben has written before, but most of the songs have been songs that John has written. So I'm interested to see, if people think that it sounds different, other than the voices, obviously. But, to me, it feels very much in the same vein as stuff we've been playing. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see when it comes out.
Yeah, definitely. John, what do you think?
I think the presence of piano across the tracks definitely is like a pretty concrete tracking difference. We don't have piano in a lot of other work. The Tim arranges more lush harmonies by instinct than I do. So I think that will be definitely a trademark of this EP as well, compared to other stuff, is that, here and there we would do pretty ornate things with harmony, but Tim really likes to do that as much as possible, I'd say. in a lot of songs. And so I think that will sound fresh. And I think otherwise they'll sound like they're in the same family. I think the other trademark of Tim's might be the more rhythmic rhythm guitar playing will sound not out of place at all, but I think a bit more will sound more forefronted across the EP than it has in previous releases.
You also shared, when you released Autumn, you shared pictures of the album artwork for the EP. What was kind of the inspiration behind that? Because I'm trying to remember exactly what it looked like, but it was almost like a sketchbook or something, right? Or like a notebook, something along those lines.
Yeah, so it was, so the way we went about the artwork was I just reached out to my friend Caroline, who's a designer and an artist, and I just like we're just really good friends, and I just like knew that they would kind of like get the kind of I don't know, the vibes, I guess, that we were going for. Like, yeah, exactly. And so I just told them pretty much like, I just want you to, you know, I shared the songs with them, just the demos at that point, and like the lyrics and stuff. And we just talked about it a little bit. And I said, I just want you to, you know, make something that you're proud of and, you know, that you're excited about. And so yeah, they were just like, I'm really into doing like collage right now. And you know, like we had this kind of motif for our previous artwork that was done by another one of our friends named Sophia, where it was kind of like a single line aesthetic, like those two, the first two EPs we put out. You can line them up right next to each other and the line goes all the way across. Cool. And so, and like we've sold merch that's like embroidered.
Oh, cool.
And so, you know, I think that's where like the kind of yarn of the socks and the bottom, you know, and the bottom of the frame came from, was like a continuation of that aesthetic. And then the rest was really just kind of like pieces that Caroline had cut out of magazines and just leaves they had picked up off of the ground and X-Acto knifed into the exact like the exact like shape that they needed. Yeah, and it was incredible on this like tea stained like cloth, I guess was what it was all placed on. So yeah, and I just think it's gorgeous. So that's why I've been posting so many photos of it and the process.
It's so funny that you mentioned that process of just sending her the lyrics and sending her the music before, or to have her like create the image. Because when I listened to it too, I even said to myself, I go, this all fits together like so incredibly well. And that's something that I always like seeing when artists put out work, is like, you know, how does the whole like album aesthetic or piece or like EP aesthetic really fit together from the visual and the audio artwork? Like, it's just, I just think that stuff's so cool, how it's all able to like connect like that. And I really think you guys hit the nail on the head with it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been, you know, effusively praising them in all of the like every chance I get. Like, it's been so great, and I'm super pumped for these, because this is just the single artwork. So I'm super pumped for the EP artwork too. They've just put so much effort into like down to so every detail.
Yeah, they have a really detail-oriented approach to their work. Tim and I actually were models in their final mass art, like senior, was that a thesis piece or?
Yeah.
Like it was like a, you know, like a capstone project.
Okay.
And they designed full outfits. I had like overalls and like a crop top shirt. It was.
Yeah, and it was all like sustainable materials.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, like
that was what the whole thesis was about.
But they were, like the pieces were very like prolifically detailed with different moments across all different parts of the pieces.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something, you know, with the amount of I liked being able to like post all the process and like the zoom in on, you know, you wouldn't realize that this little piece, because I mean that's what I would hope, that's what I hope people do with our music, you know. And it's what I really love to do with music. And like John and I like really became fast friends in part because we like picking out those little moments in the song that it's like, oh, like this, if you listen in your left ear right here, oh, there's just that bell, and it's just, oh, perfect, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, like people engaging with, it's worth putting in those details just for yourself. But, you know, people engaging with it, you know, giving people who want to, you know, listen really closely or look really closely, like rewarding them for doing that. You know, I feel like that's what it's all about, visually and with music.
Those folks are gonna like pantomime the most.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
That was the one that Dan had
the most. Yeah, had the did the most work in balancing. I think there are 2 rhythm guitars, like 4 different lead guitars, piano, Rhodes, drums, bunch of backing vocals, and then like auxiliary percussion. Dan also added in. It's pretty dense.
Yeah, a lot to work with. Well, I want to know too, so you have the release date of the EP, but I couldn't find a title. So is that something that's under wraps until it drops, or can you share that?
No, can definitely share it. So it's called Here's to Then. And, you know, that's, you know, half of the title of the last song. But yeah, it obviously on like the surface level just comes from, you know, I wanted, when this relationship ended, like it ended on good terms, and, you know, I'm like very thankful for the relationship having happened, and like I'm still friends with the person. And they've been really supportive of this EP she has. So that's great. But when it ended, I just like wanted to, you know, kind of memorialize it in my life in some way. And so I feel like that's my favorite part of songwriting, is being able to look back, you know, 10 years from now or something, and really just understand you know, how I was feeling and how I was, you know, what my perspective was on different events in my life. What, you know, I was thinking about enough to write a song about. And then just the phrasing itself was actually just something that a friend of mine, Deity Blair, had said to me. We were just like texting like in the midst of the pandemic, and we were like, oh, like it would be, you know, we'll get together. We wish we could hang out, you know, we'll get together soon. And they just said, yeah, here's to them. And I just was struck by just the phrasing of that.
Okay.
And that actually kind of led to the writing of that song. And then, you know, it's something that I think just makes sense looking at the EP as a whole. So.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys, John and Tim, so much for hopping on and doing this. Like I was telling John earlier, like I'm so glad I had someone reach out, because I've been meaning to get back on this. So I can't thank you guys enough for being open to sharing this with me. Before we wrap this up, why don't you let my listeners know where they can find you on social media, streaming services, and where they can just listen to your music and stay up to date on whatever y'all are doing.
Yeah, so you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Plumes Music. That's Plumes Music. And yeah, you can find us on Spotify, Deezer. I don't know what that is, but you know, our publishing service is really into telling us that it's even on Deezer. So yeah, Spotify, Apple Music. I have a friend who does Tidal. So you can find us there, and there's a Canadian songstress named Plumes as well. But we are the black script on the
basically
white
don't
background.
get confused. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want a little extra material too, you can go to plumes.bandcamp.com for like a more holistic look at our discography, including the stuff that we like don't have the guts to put on Spotify, I guess, or just like, you know, isn't quite up to snuff.
Yeah, there's some cool write-ups that John has done of each release on there too.
Say like the true measurable stuff, the stuff that really lets us know who you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, David.